The old auction house smelled of sweat, smoke, and hopelessness. Strange lights flickered overhead. Alien voices echoed off the metal walls, loud with excitement and cruelty. This was not a place for mercy. This was a place where living beings were bought and sold like objects. She was dragged into the center, staged by 2 guards, one on each side. Holding her in chains, her name was Sakara. She had silver skin marked by battle scars, strong arms built from years of war, and wild white hair that fell over her glowing red eyes. Her body trembled, but not from fear, from rage. Once, she was a proud warrior of the Drakari tribe. Now, she was nothing more than a prize for the highest bidder. The crowd jeered. She's useless. Look at her, can't even stand straight. Maybe her kind can make strong children. That's the only thing she's good for now. But Sakara kept her head high, even when she was forced to kneel. Even when they laughed, she wouldn't cry. She had lost everything: her army, her freedom, her honor, but she would not lose her spirit. From the back of the room, one human stood silent. He wore an old coat, patched with rough fabric. His face had a long scar across the cheek, and his boots were stained with the dirt of many worlds. His name wasn't known. He was just called the Outsider. People often ignored him, but he was watching her. When the bidding started, it was low. No one really wanted her. 1 credit. 5, 10 credits final offer, shouted a voice. The auctioneer laughed. Sold. 10 credits for the alien warrior girl. What a deal. The chains clanked loudly as she was thrown off the stage right at the human's feet. She expected the kick, the spit, the insult. That's what others did. But the human just knelt beside her. You're hurt, he said quietly. Sakara didn't respond. He reached for her chains. She flinched. But he only checked the lock, not to tighten it, but to make sure it didn't cut her skin. That confused her. Then she looked up, right into his eyes. There was no fire, no laughter, no hunger in them. Just quiet. And something else, something strange. She lowered her voice, unsure why she was speaking at all. My body is strong, human. She whispered, I'll give you strong children. She hated herself for saying it. But what else could she offer? That's what they wanted her for. That's why she was still alive. To be used. But the human didn't smile. He didn't touch her. He looked sad. I didn't buy you for that, he said. I just couldn't leave you here. Sakara didn't understand. What kind of fool wastes 10 credits on a broken woman? The journey to his camp was silent. He didn't chain her to the transport. He didn't even look back as she followed. She could have run. But where would she go? The forest beyond was full of poison beasts and deep traps. She stayed close. They reached a small wooden shelter hidden under trees. A soft fire burned. There was food, cooking real food, not the garbage they threw in cages. You hungry? He asked. She didn't answer. Her eyes watched every movement. Was this a trick? A game? Would he wait until her guard was down? He placed a bowl near her and walked away. He sat by the fire and began cleaning a knife, not as a threat, but like a routine. Sakara sniffed the bowl. Meat. She picked it up and began to eat fast, too fast. Her stomach hurt, but she didn't stop. She hadn't eaten real food in days. The human didn't stop her. You can sleep in the hut, he said later. I'll sleep outside. Sakara blinked. This was too strange. Too peaceful. Why? She asked. He looked at her again. Because no one deserves to sleep in chains. That night, she stayed awake. She didn't trust this man, Atiya, but she also didn't understand him. He wasn't soft, his hands were calloused. His voice was rough, but he was kind. In the middle of the night, she heard something in the woods. A sound, a growl. Her eyes opened wide. Something was coming, and the human was outside. She stood slowly. Her chains rattled. Her warrior instinct, long buried, began to wake up. Morning light touched the edge of the small shelter. Sakara hadn't slept. Her back hurt from leaning against the wooden wall, her legs sore from old bruises. But her eyes had stayed fixed on the man who slept outside, just a few feet from the fire. He had no weapons close, no chains waiting for her, just one blanket and a half-finished knife near the fire pit. She could have killed him in his sleep, or escaped, but she didn't. Something about him made her hesitate. When he opened his eyes, he saw her already staring. "Didn't sleep?" he asked. Sitting up, she shook her head once. "Bad dreams?" "No," she answered. "No dreams at all." The human, still sleepy, stood and stretched. His back cracked, his shoulders rolled. Then he quietly walked over to the fire, added some wood and checked the meat hanging above it. He looked at her again. "You can come outside. It's safe." She stayed where she was. He waited a few seconds, then went back to cooking. No pressure, no orders, just quiet. Sakara watched every move. This wasn't how humans acted. Later that day, you brought her water in a metal cup. She stared at it like it was poison. "I didn't drug it," he said with a shrug. "But you can wait and see if I drop dead first." She hesitated, then slowly took it. Cold, clean. Her throat welcomed it. He sat on a tree stump nearby and began carving something out of wood with a dull knife. Sakara finally spoke. "What is this place?" "An old ranger camp," he said. "Abandoned long ago. No one comes here anymore. And you live here? For now." She studied the simple tent, the cooking station, the tools. This wasn't a rich man, but he lived better than most. "Why did you buy me?" she asked. He looked up, thoughtful. "You were kneeling on that floor like you were already dead," he said. "But your eyes? They weren't." That made her go quiet. No one had ever said anything like that before. That afternoon, while walking near the edge of the forest, he handed her a stick. "Help me collect firewood," he said. She took it cautiously, unsure if it was a trick. But he was already picking up broken branches. No guard, no leash. She followed. He spoke. "While he worked, I used to be a soldier," he said. "Fought in the border wars. Got tired of seeing people sold for coins, so I walked away." "You are weak now," she said coldly. He laughed. "Maybe, but I'm free." That word free hit her like a rock. She didn't remember what freedom felt like that night. A storm rolled in. Wind howled through the trees. The shelter creaked. Rain fell hard on the rooftop. Inside, the fire crackled low. Sakara sat in a corner, arms wrapped around her knees. Her body still hurt, but her mind was racing. He offered her a blanket. She flinched again, but took it. "You're used to pain," he said gently. "I was raised with it," she replied. He looked into the fire, quiet for a moment. "I don't want anything from you," he said suddenly. Her head turned. "You don't believe me?" "No," she said. He smiled sadly. "That's okay. Time will teach you." Suddenly, there was a loud growl outside. Both of them froze. The growl turned into a deep snarl. The human stood quickly and grabbed his knife. "Stay here." But Sakara also stood. Her chains clanked as she moved toward the door. "No," she said. "If it's what I think, you won't survive it alone." He looked at her, confused. "What is it?" "A feral mall beast," she whispered. "Fast, strong, smells fear." The beast roared again, closer now. He stepped outside, but before he could stop her, Sakara followed. Rain poured down, soaking them both. And there it was, a massive creature with 6 legs, 2 long tusks, and glowing yellow eyes. It stood like a nightmare. growling and slamming its claws into the ground. The human froze. Sakara stepped in front of him. He tried to stop her. "Wait, you're still chained." She didn't care. She roared back at the beast. It paused, shocked, challenged, and then it lunged. Sakara moved fast, too fast for someone with wounds and chains. She ducked, spun, and slammed the chain into the beast's jaw. It roared in pain. She used her own shackles, like weapons, wrapping them around the beast's tusk, pulling it sideways, using its weight against it. The fight was short, but brutal. She didn't kill it, but she made it run. The forest went quiet. Again, rain still fell, but the danger had passed. Back in the shelter, the human stared at her as she sat back down. Breathing hard, "You just saved my life," he said. She didn't answer. Instead, she said something that surprised even herself. "I was not made to serve. I was made to protect." The night after the mall beast attack was quieter than expected. Sakara sat near the low fire, steam rising from her wet skin. Her chains were still around her wrists, bruises forming on her arms. But something inside her had changed. The sound of her own roar during battle echoed in her head. For the first time in many moons, she felt like herself again, not a captive, not a slave. A warrior. The human sat nearby, wrapping a cloth around his arm. The beast had clawed him before it fled. The cut was deep, but not fatal. He winced slightly. "You didn't have to do that," he said. Sakara kept her gaze on the flames. "I didn't do it for you," she muttered. He smiled at that. "Of course not." A pause followed. "You fought like a monster," he added. "I've never seen anyone move that fast in chains." Sakara looked at her wrists. The metal cuffs were cracked and worn now from the fight. Blood dried around them. "I was trained from birth," she said softly. In the Drakari clans, girls learn to fight before they learn to speak. He leaned back, eyes narrowing, so wide they sell you off like cattle. Her lips tightened. Pain flickered. In her eyes, "I lost a battle. I was wounded. They said I was no longer worthy of the bloodline." "Then they're fools," he said simply. She looked at him. Surprised the next morning, Sakara woke up to something strange. Silence, no chains. She sat up fast, heart racing. The metal cuffs were gone. Her wrists were red. But the cold weight was no longer there. She turned and saw them, her broken shackles hanging quietly from a wooden hook by the door. The human was cooking something over the fire. "You unchained me," she whispered. He didn't turn. "You've saved my life. Twice now. You trust me." He finally looked back. "Not yet, but I want to." She stood slowly. Her legs still hurt, but the balance in her step had returned. Without chains, she felt lighter, stronger, free. Later that day, they began gathering supplies from the forest together. She walked beside him, no longer trailing behind like a prisoner. He noticed it. "You walk like a leader," he said. Sakara snorted. "And? You talk too much." He laughed. They returned with food, roots, and herbs. She began cooking without needing to be asked by evening. The small shelter felt more like a home. That night, by the fire, she told him her story. "My father was a war chief," she said. "He raised me with steel, not love. If I cried, I was punished. If I failed, I was beaten. And if you won," he asked, "I was still not enough." Her voice cracked slightly. "They trained me to be strong, to carry the next generation of warriors. That's all. We were walking weapons." He said nothing for a moment. Then softly, "Is that why you said what you said at the auction?" She turned her head sharply. That was all I was good for. Ta." The fire crackled between them. I don't see it that way, he said. I know, she whispered. That's what scares me. The next day, they trained together. He set up makeshift targets using old crates and stones. She showed him how to balance a blade, how to step without making sound, how to use breath during combat. He taught her how to set traps and clean wounds. They were from different worlds, but somehow they worked like one. At night, she watched him as he slept, breathing slowly near the fire. She no longer feared him. She respected him, maybe even liked him. Days passed. One morning, while sharpening a blade, she caught her reflection in the metal. Her face was still scarred, her eyes still fierce. But there was something new. Peace, she heard a noise behind her. The human approached, carrying something wrapped in cloth. I found this in my storage box, he said. Might fit you. He unwrapped it. Inside was a dark combat suit. Old, but clean. Flexible. Tough. Sakara's breath caught. She touched it slowly, as if afraid it would vanish. I don't have the right to wear this, she said. You've earned more than that, he replied. She took it, walked to the back, and changed. When she returned, he turned to look at her. For a moment, said nothing. Then finally, he smiled. You look like a warrior again. I am a warrior, she said, with fire in her voice. That night, thunder rolled again, but this time, it wasn't weather. It was engines, ships. Close, she stepped outside. 3 dark shapes in the sky, moving slow. Searching. The human joined her. They've found us, he said, grimly. She didn't blink. Let them come. Her eyes glowed red again. The sky was full of noise. 3 small ships passed above the trees, scanning the forest with red search beams. They moved slowly, hunting like predators. The same people who once caged Sakara were backhand. They weren't here to talk. The human stood still beside her. He didn't speak, but his hand hovered near his belt, where a small blaster hung. Sakara's eyes narrowed. They came for me. He nodded. They're not taking you. She glanced at him, confused. Why would you risk your life for me? The human looked her in the eyes. Because you're not a slave anymore. For a moment, Sakara didn't know what to say. Her own people had tossed her aside like trash. But this man, this human, who owed her nothing, stood ready to fight for her freedom. She wasn't used to this kind of loyalty. Felt fragile, like something that could disappear at any second. As the ships moved farther, the danger seemed to pass at least for the moment. Back inside the shelter, the tension was heavy. The human was preparing supplies, food packs, a first aid kit, and 2 weapons. We need to move, he said. They'll come back soon, on foot this time. Sakara picked up one of the weapons and checked the power cell. You trust me with a weapon now? She asked. He gave a soft smile. Didn't you just fight a maul beast for me? Sakara returned the smile, but it faded quickly. Her body still remembered the cold feel of chains. Her mind still whispered that this peace wouldn't last. They hiked into the forest. Sticking close to the trees as they walked, the human told her stories of Earth, of battles, of loss. He spoke in simple words, yet his voice carried pain. He had lost people too, friends, family. He had walked away from war because he couldn't watch good people die anymore. I left everything behind, he said, but I think maybe I left to find you. Sakara stopped walking. That's foolish, she said. You didn't even know I existed. I didn't need to, he replied. I just knew I hadn't found the right reason to fight again. Looked away, but her heart thudded louder. No one had ever said anything like that to her. By sunset, they reached a hidden cave near a waterfall. The sound of rushing water covered their footsteps. The cave was deep, dry, and safe for now. Sakara sat by the fire while the human laid out gear. You keep watching me, he said suddenly. She blinked. I'm trained to watch everything. That's not why, he said quietly. You still don't trust me. She was silent for a moment. I want to, she finally said. But trust is not easy when your own kind betrayed you. He nodded slowly. Then let's take one step at a time. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Sakara lay near the wall of the cave, wrapped in a thin blanket. She could hear the human breathing just a few feet away. Her mind spun. Why did this man look at her like she mattered? Why did his words stay in her chest longer than her own heartbeat? She remembered the auction, the cold floor, the way she had whispered to him, I'll give you strong children. Not because she wanted to, but because she thought that was the only way to survive. Now, she wasn't sure. Was it still survival? Or something deeper? In the middle of the night, she heard movement, fast, silent. She rose quickly and touched the human's arm. He was already awake. His hand reached for his blaster. Outside the cave, shadows moved. Sakara peered into the darkness. 4 figures, black armor, red visors, dot hunters. They were here, the human whispered. We're outnumbered. Sakara gripped her weapon. Then, we even the numbers. Before he could stop her, she slipped out the cave entrance and vanished into the night. What followed was quiet chaos. She struck fast, sousing the darkness, the trees, the mud. One by one, she pulled them down. Silent kills, sharp moves. Only one made it back toward the cave. But the human was ready. He stepped forward, raised his blaster, and fired one clean shot to the chest. Silence returned. Minutes later, Sakara appeared from the trees, breathing hard, but alive. He stared at her. You risked everything. So did you. She answered. Their eyes met. Something had changed between them again. They dragged the bodies away, burned the gear, and made sure nothing led back to the cave. As dawn broke, they sat side by side near the waterfall, covered in mud and blood, but alive. You should have left me, she said softly. Before all this, I didn't want to, he replied. Why? He didn't answer right away. Then he looked at her with steady eyes. Because I think you're the strongest person I've ever met. And maybe you were never meant to fight alone. She didn't speak, but she reached over and gently touched his hand. Just for a moment, trust was still growing. But now, tad roots. Morning sunlight spilled through the cracks in the cave, warming the stone floor. Birds chirped in the distance. The waterfall roared on, as steady as ever. But inside the cave, the silence between Sakara and the human was heavy. She sat alone. By the edge, her silver skin marked with fresh bruises and drying blood. The night's battle still echoed in her body, but it was her thoughts that truly weighed her down. The human, quiet, calm, and wounded, was wrapping his arm again, anew. Cut ran down his side. T hadn't complained, not once. Just stitched it himself and kept going. Sakara watched him. You bleed a lot for someone who doesn't like war, she said finally. He looked up, a tired smile on his lips. And you care a lot for someone who claims not to. She looked away, embarrassed. Silence again. Then he said softly, Do you want to tell me the rest of your story? Sakara didn't move at first. Then slowly, she nodded. I was bred to be strong, she began. Born in the warrior caste of the Drakari, my blood was tested the moment I took my first breath. Strength, bone density, muscle reaction. If I didn't pass the test, I would have been removed. Removed, thrown into the void. The human's jaw tightened. She continued. I passed. I trained every day. I learned to fight, to lead, to kill. They told me I would one day carry the next generation of our strongest warriors. But when I failed in one battle just once, they They said I was unworthy, damaged, weak, so they sold me. She looked him in the eyes. That's why I said what I said that day at the auction. My body is strong, human. I'll give you strong children. Her voice trembled now. It wasn't just desperation. 'Twas the only value I believed I had left. The human said nothing. He just walked over and sat beside her. You were never broken, he said gently. You were just surrounded by blind fools. Sakara turned her head, blinking back the heat in her eyes. No tears, not now. Later that day, the human passed her a small fruit. She looked at it suspiciously. He chuckled. It's not poisoned, I promise. She took a bite, chewed slowly. Sweet, juicy, simple, and somehow comforting. He asked, Do you want children? She nearly choked. Why would you ask that? Because last night you said you were made for it. But you never said if you wanted it. She was quiet for a long time. Then, softly, I don't know. The human nodded. That's okay. You should get to choose. Her eyes widened. Choose. He nodded again. Not be forced, not be used, not be assigned like a breeding machine. She was silent, but her heartbeat pounded in her chest. Choice, she had never thought she had one. Later, she saw him limping again. The side wound had reopened. Sit, she said sharply. He raised an eyebrow. Is that an order, soldier? Ow. She growled. He obeyed. She cleaned the wound gently. Her fingers were strong but careful. You should have let me take the hit last night, she muttered. You were already bleeding from your shoulder. You're slower than me. You're bossier than me. They both smirked. Then, her expression turned serious. I don't want you to die. He looked at her. He looked at her. I don't plan to. That night, Sakara sat by the water, alone. She stared at the reflection of the moon on the surface. Her own face stared. Back-tired, scarred, but softer somehow. She heard footsteps behind her. He sat beside her again, arms resting on his knees. There's something I've been thinking about, he said. She turned to him. I've seen a lot of strong people, he continued, but most of them were cruel. Cold you. You're different. I was trained to survive, she replied. That doesn't mean I forgot how to feel. He nodded. Maybe strength isn't just muscle in battle. Maybe it's about heart, too. Akara smiled. Barely. I used to think strength meant killing, faster than the other. But now, I think it's the courage to trust again. They sat in silence for a while. Then she said something he didn't expect. If I ever choose to have children, I'd want them to grow up like you. He turned to her, stunned. You mean stubborn, quiet, and slow? She laughed a real warm laugh. No, she said. Kind, brave, free. It had been 5 days since the first attack. 5 peaceful days. The cave was now cleaner, warmer, and filled with simple comfort: fresh firewood, water jars, a cooking pot. Sakara and the human had fallen into a rhythm. He hunted small animals. She made traps. They trained together every morning. She was healing, not just outside, but inside. 2, she had even started sleeping deeply. But peace never lasts forever. That morning, while picking herbs near the edge of the stream, Sakara froze. There on a stone was a mark. It looked like a scratch at first, but she knew better. A sigil. Burned in with plasma, she dropped the herbs and ran back. He saw her expression and stood up immediately. What is it? She tossed a branch at his feet. He looked down. The burn-marked twig still smoked faintly. Scouts. She said, Drakari, my clan. His eyes narrowed. They found us? Not yet, but they're close. Then we move. Sakara shook her head. No. If we run, they'll hunt us harder. We must stand our ground. He hesitated. "We're just two people." "No," she said firmly. "We're one warrior, one strategist, and we're not afraid." He stared at hers, so fierce, so alive. Not the same woman who'd whispered. In chains, this was Sakara of the Drakari, unchained, awakened. That night, they prepared the camp booby traps. Reinforced cave entrance. Extra weapons. Sakara found her old shoulder plates. Buried in the gear pile, bent but still strong. She wore them again, when the humans saw her step into the firelight in her armor. He froze. She looked like a living statue of war. "You're terrifying," he said. She smirked. "Good." Then her smile faded. "They'll try to take me alive. Why? Because I was sold illegally. They want to cover it up. Quietly. And if I resist, they'll kill you first." He stepped closer. "Let them try." Hours passed. The forest held its breath. Then, in the early dark, they came. For Drakari warriors. 2 from her former squad. She knew their faces, and they knew hers. Sakara. One of them called out, "You are ordered to return with us." She stepped forward, her hands on her hips. "I don't take orders from traitors. You belong to the bloodline," he said coldly. "You were born to serve." "I was born to fight," she snapped. "And I choose who I fight for now." The second warrior raised his weapon. "And you choose a human." Sakara didn't answer with words. She answered with a blade. The fight began fast. Blasters fired. Energy cracked the air. Skara moved like lightning, leaping, rolling, slashing. The human fought beside her. To back. He covered her blind spots, shot with precision. She protected his flank with blade and bare fists. One attacker went down, quickly caught. In a trap, another took a shot to the leg and fell screaming. Only 2 remained. One of them, her former training partner, stepped forward. "You were my sister in war," he shouted. "You sold me." She screamed back, charging him. Their blades clashed. Sparks flew. It was the hardest fight of her life, not because he was stronger, but because he once mattered. Meanwhile, the last attacker aimed at the human from behind. Sakara saw it. "No," she yelled, but she was too far. The human turned. Justin Timon took the hit to his shoulder. He collapsed to one knee. Blood poured. Kara's scream shook the trees. With one savage cry, she tackled her former partner and brought him down hard. Her blade at his throat. "I am no one's property," she whispered. He sneered. "Then die a nobody." She drove the blade home. The fight was over. Smoke rose. Bodies lay still, but the human was bleeding badly. She ran to him, dropped to her knees. His eyes blinked slowly. "Did we win?" She nodded, tears brimming. "Then stop crying," he said with a weak smile. She pressed cloth against his wound. "You stupid, fragile man," she muttered. "Why did you take the shot?" "'Cause I promised I wouldn't let them take you. You almost died. Worth it?" She shook her head. And then, without fiercy, against his. "I never asked to be saved," she whispered. "But you did it anyway." He smiled faintly. "And I'd do it again, at night." She didn't sleep. She sat beside him, guarding him while he healed. Not because she owed him, but because she chose to. For the first time in her life, she was not following a command, or a code, or a duty. She was following her heart. Morning came slowly. The sun's light crept into the cave where silence had settled after the long, bloody night. The fire had burned down to glowing coals, and the only sound was the soft breathing of the wounded human lying on a bed of blankets and leaves. Sakara hadn't moved all night. She sat at his side, her hands resting on his. Her silver eyes were red from lack of sleep. Her once-proud warrior armor was now stained with ash and blood. But she didn't care. She had chosen to stay with him, not because he saved her life, but because he gave her back her soul. When he stirred, she quickly leaned over him. "You're awake," she whispered, voice tight with worry. He blinked slowly. "Feels like I got punched by a starship." She let out a shaky breath, half a laugh, half a sob. "You almost died." "Didn't plan on it," he said, trying to sit up. She pressed his chest gently. "Don't move. Your wound still needs time." "Still giving orders, warrior." Oh, she smirked. "You finally learned who's in charge." As the day passed, she cared for him. Changed his bandages, fed him warm broth, sat close in case he needed anything. But he knew. She needed him too, not to protect her, but to remind her that she wasn't just a weapon. She was a woman. She was a person. That afternoon, as he rested, she stepped outside the cave. The world felt different. She breathed in the forest air, closed her eyes, and stood still. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was free. Later that night, the human woke to find Sakara sitting across from him. The firelight danced across her face. "You could have left me," he said. "I didn't want to. You had the chance. I didn't want it." He looked at her for a long time. Then, he said, "You're not what I expected." She raised an eyebrow. "What did you expect? Someone dangerous, cold, silent. And what am I?" He smiled. "Strong, loyal, alive." She looked down, voice soft. "You gave me that back." She stood, walked to his side, and sat beside him. Then quietly, she placed his hand on her chest, just over her heart. "My body is strong, human," she whispered. "But now I know. It's not just for war. It's for building, for protecting, for healing." He didn't say anything, so she continued, "I want to choose. Not because someone ordered me, not because someone owns me. I want to choose my life." She looked into his eyes. "And I choose you." His throat tightened. He gently squeezed her hand. "And I choose you too." The next day, they buried the Drakari soldiers far from the cave. No symbols, no names, just silence. Afterward, Sakara gathered her broken armor, her old chain cuffs, and placed them in a pile. Then she set it all on fire. The flames rose high, curling into the sky like a signal to the stars that life was gone. A new one had begun. Days turned to weeks. He healed. Slowly. She taught him new combat techniques. He taught her how to cook simple earth meals. They laughed, argued, worked, rested, and every night they sat together near the fire, shoulder to shoulder, looking at the stars. One evening, as the sky turned purple and gold, she turned to him and asked quietly if we ever have children. He looked at her. "Do you think they'll be strong?" He smiled, reached over, and gently touched her face. "They'll be strong, Sakara, because their mother was brave enough to fight, and kind enough to love." Her heart pounded in her chest, and for the first time in her life, she felt whole. Not a weapon, not a prize, not a broken thing to be used, but a woman who had been broken and chose to rebuild with him.